Hello, everyone. Welcome to Autonomous Meatbags' TGS, otherwise known as Tokyo Game Show's 2018 coverage or discussion, whatever you want to call it. My name's Akil. I also have. He'll say something soon.
Charlie, you alright?
You're such a suspense whore.
Bro,
Really are,
you gotta build up the suspense. It's anticipation. Do you know what I mean?
You just
Listen. This is the way to live your life. Everything is about the build. Yeah, you don't want to just splurge it all at once, right? It's all about the build. The build up to anything is better than the actual thing itself. I guarantee you that in every aspect of life.
Like edging, right?
Huh?
Like edging, right?
Sure. Or like I was thinking more like a wrestling match. Like the end is not the best bit. The bit in the middle is. Do you know what I mean? But we could also go there if that's what you want.
Live on the edge.
Man, I live on the edge every day. Sometimes I cross the road when the man is still red. Yeah, I live life on the edge.
It's madman.
I live life on the edge.
On the edge. Matt Murdock will look at you and be like, "This guy's the real Daredevil."
Exactly. I'm fighting people. I take my glasses off so I can't see. It's mad.
This lunatic.
It's mad.
But we covered E3 earlier this year. We covered Gamescom and we covered TGS. And I think that's probably, well, we're covering TGS. Those would be considered the three big holy trinity of big game expos. And they represent the three continents that are biggest in gaming. So you have Gamescom for Europe, E3 for America, even though it's very much just worldwide.
Yeah.
And TGS for Japan. So
I think TGS, just very quickly, I think it's interesting because they're it's dampening its importance a little bit. I think that, like through the last gen, it's sort of like dimmed down a little bit, and like you had less press conferences, you had less stuff going on there, less reveals, and so it sort of got less important. And then you had like Paris Games Week popped up and stuff like that. So over the next couple of years, it's going to be interesting for me personally to see industry-wise where it goes. Do we see Paris Games Week become the next third tier, as it were? Or will TGS grow a bit, stay the same? Like, it's interesting. Especially with, as we said, the re-emergence of Japanese games. I think that's going to be really interesting.
we talked about this, was it last week?
Yeah.
Where last gen, which is the PS3, 360, and the Wii. Sorry, I don't like the Wii.
Wii's great. Zack and Wiki, mate.
I don't like the Wii.
Zack and Wiki.
For that whole gen, Japan either struggled making AAA games, tried to westernize a lot of their games and failed, or just went mobile.
Yeah.
And it really just wreaked havoc on a lot of their big, either AAA or just very, very famous franchises. So you had studios like Capcom, Square Enix, Sega. Namco Bandai has sort of been strong throughout, I want to say.
Yeah,
they do Tekken, they do Naruto games, Dragon Ball Z. They've been sort of strong. But a lot of the big hitters just weren't doing nearly as well last gen, and a lot of small studios were just gone. And it's for a variety of reasons. I think we sort of agreed with the idea that this gen, they have learned to market their games to two different audiences, while last gen they just weren't able to do it at all, and they were sort of stuck in, I want to say, a bubble where they would only market it to Japanese people. And I think this TGS in particular shows that they've finally gone through the hurdle of going, how do we make our Japanese games appeal to Western gamers? And to be honest with you, games already did.
Yeah,
like games like Metal Gear Solid and so on, they already did.
That's just the key. Is you want to. The thing is I think in the last gen there was very much a prevalence of at least the biggest Japanese games, like Final Fantasy as an example, trying to tend too much to perceived Western ideals as opposed to making something that's different. Because I think ultimately the stance should be make your game good and people will actually just buy it and play it. And I think that's been proved time and time again. And the example we were talking about specifically last week of Monster Hunter is something that's stayed very, very true to its roots and then like finally had that hit where everyone went, oh, Monster Hunter is actually great, and then everyone got it. And I think that's the best thing. That sort of, it's like, even as someone who, like I said to you last week, I'm not into Monster Hunter really. It doesn't really appeal to me, but it's just I'm super happy to see a game like that break out into the mainstream in the West, because that means I at least I would hope that the logic that will follow will be Japanese publishers and developers actually being confident in their own design ideals, as opposed to trying to sort of cater to the West, which is not something I don't want to see someone try and cater to. That we've already got that. Let's have something different and new, and that's really exciting. And like, from the games we're seeing coming out or coming up that we're about to speak about, seems to be sort of what's happening.
Yeah, and like you have things like Yakuza, which I always harp on about, that is also breaking into the West in a big way. Persona 5 was huge last year. Like Persona 5, Monster Hunter, these are all games I played either in my teens or as a child, and it's like, these were really niche games, you know? And then a lot of them were on PSP at the time, or they were on like handhelds for the most part, last gen. And nowadays, they break out and people are like, oh my god, how is this weird Japanese game doing 2 million? It's like, because it has a fan base. It's just steadily did its thing and it got a fan base.
In the same way that when PS4 first came out and it got so big so quickly, because it catered to the what was perceived to be the niche in that case, which would be, if you look at Microsoft, who are competing to the general casual audience, and then PlayStation marketed purely to people who are super into games, you serve the niche market. That niche market will essentially do the advertising for you, and then it grows and expands out from there. Like, you don't, if you try catering to
via YouTube,
exactly,
or word of mouth, or just borrowing games. It's like, we've been doing that since the beginning of video games, for Christ's sake. As publishers, you should all understand that, and it sort of goes back to Microsoft's weird idea of going, oh, no used game sales. It's like, you're hurting yourself, dude. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, and we should probably go over a few of the games that Sony are showing off. So for you guys listening at home or at work, or if anyone at all is listening, we have Sony, Capcom, Sega, Square Enix, Namco Bandai, and Koei Tecmo. And there are way more devs at TGS. There are a lot more, but I'm not covering them all because a lot of the games I haven't played, and I wouldn't be able to put much input into it. But with Sony, funnily enough, one of the games they're showing off is Days Gone, which is a very Western game, and you think they wouldn't show at TGS. What's your thoughts on them showing this at TGS?
I can see it. I could see it being a franchise that would cross well to Japan, and I don't know why. Like, if you said you said to me, I don't know. It's just, it's an interesting case because it still has yet to fully get off the ground in terms of the marketing in the West. There's still a sort of prevalence of it's The Last of Us. And I think that's sort of carried over, despite them showing stuff and saying, no, it's actually quite different. We're trying these different things. It's like it's a different gameplay, it's a different story, blah, 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 blah. There's still that sort of like lingering Last of Us vibe that people have. And I think it's very lukewarm. So it's interesting that they're showing it there. But I think it is something that could translate well. We'll see. I think that game's going to be... It reminded me a little bit of how when they brought out Until Dawn and no one knew that game was going to be big. Everyone was just sort of lukewarm on the fact Until Dawn existed because it had been around for such a long time, and everyone was like, okay. And then it sort of exploded outwards. I think that if there is a pathway to big success with Days Gone, that will be where it lies. With it coming out, it then getting very, very good reviews, and then building from there. But right now, the anticipation is like lukewarm, like you say.
So like a slow burner.
Yeah.
I think they might be doing this because they know that there is not, well, there's hype for Days Gone, but there's not nearly as much as Ghost of Tsushima or Death Stranding or any of these other ones. So they sort of see TGS as just another way of showing a lot of people at once this game and, you know, just getting the viewership up a bit.
Yeah.
So I think they still are interested in getting this audience in particular, but I think it's just Sony seeing it as a way of going, hey, we can show this game off again.
It's also
like
it's also out soon as well. It's out way sooner than the other games, and so for them to, it's that thing again. If you market to the hardcore, as it were, I hate using that term, but the hardcore.
It's called core. They don't like hardcore anymore.
Give me the lore of Days Gone, please. If you market to that crowd, then they can grow it from there. And again, it feels like a sleeper. And so if you're going to appeal to them at some point before it comes out, TGS isn't a bad way, because the core are the people who watch that show. So,
all right. Personally, I'm very interested in Days Gone. Like, I sort of, when they first showed it off, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, I was like, But the more I've seen of it, the more it's like, okay, they're trying interesting things. I like Last of Us and all that, and I could see the similarities, but I'm not foolish enough to go, this is a zombie game, there's another zombie game, they're both made by Sony. This actually feels like the team set out to make a game, they wanted to make it this way, they know exactly what they're doing from what I saw in the walkthroughs, and it's like they say, no, this won't be in it, that won't be in it, but this will be in it. Like, they understand what they're doing. And to me, that just sort of means this is going to be a solid game. Yeah. They understand what they're doing. Now, whether or not it will be a game that will change the world of gaming, definitely not. I could see it from here. It will not. This isn't a God of War or even a Spider-Man. I know that we've been going on about Spider-Man for the past week. It's great, but I am very interested in seeing what Days Gone is, and for me it's just another game in Sony's library that's like, hey, it's more games. Yeah. And this whole gen has been that. So for me, Days Gone, I'm very much looking forward to.
And I think if I'm just thinking back to last gen and the way Sony recovered from their bad start was by putting trust in a developer to make a game that they want. And a lot of them didn't seem like huge deals, but then turned out just to be very, very solid, very, very good games. And this sort of feels it feels like it could be another one in that line of solid, very, very good games. It's not, I don't think it'll be a 10 by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think you're going to get a solid, decent game that will be very enjoyable. And some of the stuff they are doing, like, you're right, when I've watched it, some of the stuff they've been doing or the mechanics of the game and the way it works is very interesting. Also, again, very, very brief aside, I do find it interesting that the way they've been talking about it, which you just mentioned, it feels a lot like they learned lessons from the way they handled No Man's Sky. And it's almost like they're coming out of it and being incredibly clear about what it is, what you do and how you can do it. Like, not just basically just making sure everyone knows before it comes out, which was weird. I was just thinking about it today, but
yeah. Okay, next up we have Death Stranding, a game that's come up twice this year, and as we've known about for about 3 years. Well, since MGS5, the whole MGS5 debacle. Yeah. After E3, in my opinion, I still don't know what Death Stranding is. I didn't have too much hype for the game. I have hype for Hideo Kojima and the fact that I love his video games and I love what he makes. But I didn't really have too much hype for Death Stranding. I just wanted to see exactly what it is, what we're going to be doing. Still didn't exactly see that at E3. Saw a lot of walking. A lot of vague stuff that you could make all these little theory videos about. But personally, like, I want to see what I'm doing. And I hope to God we see some of that finally. Like, when I look at the way that he... You're shaking your head.
It's not happening, bro.
But when I look at the way that he promoted MGS5, the first trailer showed off the whole big whale, and then he had like 2 more trailers or just 1 more trailer that were very vague. Then he just started to show off gameplay and show off the story, and it was like, oh, okay. But it feels like with this one, he's stewing in the whole, esoteric puddle of his mind a bit too long, and it's like, as a consumer, I'm just sort of thinking to myself, okay, just tell me what this is now. You're going on it on a bit too long. Like, and I've been playing one of his previous games recently on a channel called Police Noughts, which is a action adventure game. Well, not action adventure game, just a adventure point and click game. And his whole, explain everything. It doesn't do any favors.
Yeah.
And I think this might just be a bit more of that coming through, but just in a cinematic point of view here. But instead of him explaining everything in human terms, he's doing it in, vague scenes. If you get what I mean there. But yeah, I honestly, I just want to know what the hell this game is. Like, Cyberpunk had a great 45-minute, no, I want to say trailer, not trailer, that finally sort of... Presentation, yeah. That finally made me understand exactly what that game is. I'm not asking for the same for Death Stranding, but just if it's just like 2 to 5 minutes.
You saw 2 to 5 minutes. It was him walking through a field, then him avoiding some floating shadows. Like, you've seen it, bro. I think that over explanation thing, I think, is just, I've always noticed it in anime. Like, they just have an obsession with flipping exposition, man. They just love it. They love a bit of exposition. If they could shove a bit of exposition in someone, they will. I was watching Attack on Titan, and there's even exposition in the ad breaks, because they have them cut where there's probably an ad break, and then it comes back and there's like a diagram on the screen for how the city works. I'm like, I don't care. To
be honest with you,
I just don't care.
The reason why that is done like that is, well, I'm gonna sound like a fucking hipster, but I was reading the original manga of Attack on Titan years before it even became popular, and they used to have this charming thing where in the middle of the manga they would have little descriptions showing off how this worked and how that worked, and like it was like, oh, this is really cool. They're not actually telling you in the story how this works and how that works, but the author's going through the trouble of just doing a little sketch in the middle of the manga or at the end of the manga showing you how, is it 3D gear? The 3D gear works, and it was like, or how all the walls work. But when they're trying to translate that to an anime, they sort of just take the words and the pages and just shove it in there rather than thinking, how do we adapt this and make it
that's what I mean.
Consumable.
It's that obsession with it's that obsession with just exposition that's not needed. And I mean, that's a side note for another day. But like, for example, one of my favorite animes, Yuri on Ice, does the exact same thing. Just mad amounts of like flipping exposition. It's like, I don't need it. I don't need to know. Just like, give me the pertinent information. But anyway, we've seen gameplay, man. I said this at the time, but we've seen it. That's what at least some of it will be. Like, it will be walking about.
It's not enough for me.
I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it is. But I guess the one thing to say about it is you're not going to see anything, man. It's just not happening. It's not going to happen. I don't think you see anything for that game until at least next E3.
Jesus Christ.
Maybe at the Game Awards.
It has to be out next
I
year.
think it's more likely to be shown at the Game Awards than it is to be shown now.
When is the Game Awards anyway? Is it December?
Yeah.
It's normally the end of the year. Yeah. But then again, he's not big in the whole Game Awards thing. I think he might just show it off here.
I mean, he rolls up at the Game Awards almost constantly. I would almost say he is more friends with Jeff Keighley than he is Japanese. I'm going to be real about it. He's a big Jeff Keighley mark. Big mark for Jeff Keighley. So yeah, I think it's more chance of showing off there than here.
Whatever the case may be, I am still interested in Death Stranding, but for the love of God, I just want to know what I'm doing.
It's just so far away that I don't think it's possible that we see anything. That's the thing. It's just so far away.
Next up, we have FromSoft's new game, which is not Dark Souls for once. I know I sound
plays like it, looks like it, but
but it looks like Tenchu, if you guys remember the old PS1 game, which also was on PS2. And like, I think there was a Tenchu Z or something on PS3. Yeah, that they used to make, which was like a stealth game. It used to be like you had Metal Gear Solid on one end, you had Splinter Cell, and you had Tenchu. Tenchu wasn't as popular as the other two, but it has a big fan base. Luke loves Tenchu, which is weird, considering Luke is not really big into games.
It's just a random.
But,
it's just a random thing he loves.
It's weird. It's a weird thing. But anyway, this seems to be Tenchu mixed with Dark Souls. Now, personally, I don't really like Souls that much.
No.
Like, I've always been more of a Monster Hunter guy. Like for me, I like quicker combat. That's why I love things like Devil May Cry and Ninja Gaiden. And when I do like slower combat, I like it like in Monster Hunter, where mobility is just great, particularly in World. And it's just like, you know, I'm not just beating my head against a boss over and over and over again, and everything is so dark and dismal, and everything's horrible, and everything's against you. I can't. Like, everyone, I know a lot of people love those games, but nah.
It's a secret number game. It's all about the numbers, bro. You're just swinging at them, but they're just not telling you what the numbers are, but they exist. You're just like swinging at something for like a good half an hour until it finally dies, and you're like, yeah, I achieved something. No, bro, secret number game.
But this actually does look a bit interesting to me. I like some of the ways that they use the stealth, like seeing him climb. Sorry about that. That was my Windows 10 notifying me of an email. Thanks, Windows 10. That was really loud. Anyway, like when he's climbing along, you know those beams on a house?
Yeah.
At the top of the house, like he's just climbing along one, and then he takes out, I think, 3 enemies at once, and it's like, oh, cool. You guys are doing more interesting stealth, and then you're making it so you could take things on in more than one way. And it's not just a bunch of faceless, gross-looking, grotesque dudes. It's actually characters. Okay, this looks a bit interesting. But the thing that gives me a bit of pause is Activision. But what are your thoughts on it?
I think Activision are potentially smart enough to just let them do whatever the hell they want to do. There was probably a race to pick up the next FromSoft IP, and I think because of that, I mean, given the success of Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, I think there was probably a race to get the new one. And so given that, I believe that Activision will probably just let them do what they want to do, and would be smart to let them do what they want to do. It exists in the world. I might get it if it's good, but I've got no particular interest for it. For like everything that I find interesting about that, there are other games which do it more, or I am more interested in. So it's just one of those things where it exists in the world. If it's good, then I'll probably buy it, because it could be, like, potentially it could be very good. If you introduce, like, if you change the gameplay of, say, if you want a Souls, like, in my opinion, if you want a Souls game, the Souls games exist. If you want a Souls game but with slightly quicker, more attacking focused combat, which I prefer, Bloodborne exists. If you can take that sort of world building and world interconnectivity in the way, like, you can explore those things, but then change the combat and the gameplay significantly, but manage to keep those elements, then that's very, very interesting to me, which the gameplay aspect is at least different enough to be interesting. But we'll see what happens with the rest of that stuff, and but I can't say I'm excited until I see something significantly more.
What I find mostly interesting about the fact that Activision is publishing this is that FromSoft is not a new dev, and they're quite established, and they have enough money to just develop this straight out. So how come they're using Activision, the publisher? It makes me sort of just, that's the one question I have.
It might just be a case of them literally looking at it and saying, we don't need to use our own money. We can just get someone else to do it, and then we make more money at the other end. But B, it could also just be a case of them saying, do you know what? We don't know how to publish to the West. We don't know how to promote. We don't know how to do all those things in the West. So why not get someone else to do it? Because publishing something yourself, if it's not purely an online thing, when you're distributing discs and you're doing everything else on a worldwide scale, costs a hell of a lot of money. And I think unless they were to do it as like a digital download only thing, like, you look at all these people, you look at, like, so there's so many examples in the indie scene. Another word, I hate indie, but like there's so many different examples in there of games that are huge and really well published and promoted when they're purely downloads, but when it comes to releasing a physical edition, they team up with a publisher to do it because it is so cost prohibitive to do that. And so if they're looking for if they're looking for something on the scale of a Dark Souls or a Bloodborne in terms of exposure and sales, then I think it just makes sense to team up with a publisher. And again, like I said, I suspect there was a very big bidding war essentially for whatever the next one of the From Software games will be. And so that would put them in an incredibly strong position to just sit there and go, you give us everything we want and then you can get our game. Because it's essentially as low a risk for a publisher as any other developer would be at this point.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I think I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we have, I want to say this is Media Molecules. Well, it's not even really a new game. They showed this off some years ago.
They've been showing it.
Dreams?
It got, to put it into context, it's been around since the PS4 launch. In the public sphere. It's been being made for a hell of a lot longer than that, but it's been at least in the public consciousness since the PS4 launch.
And I never really understood exactly what it was. Like, they said, from what I understood, Media Molecules said the idea of making a video game in Little Big Planet is what they sort of wanted to compound upon. So they sort of made a game about that in Dreams. But I didn't know if it had anything to do with PlayStation VR or at the time I think it was Move. So I think they may have reworked it and are going to probably show it off quite a bit at TGS.
I don't think they've reworked it. I think it's the exact same thing. From what I've gathered, it's still basically the exact same thing, but you just don't have to have Move anymore. You can use VR, you can use Move, but I think now they've just reworked it because obviously the PS4 controllers have lights on them and stuff, so you can do different things with it. And I think probably I suspect you'd even be able to get it and just play other people's stuff and not have to create anything, and then that would give you I don't think you'd need anything extra. So I don't think it's been reworked. I'm shocked it's still a thing. Being completely honest for it, I do not know where the market for this thing is in any way, shape or form. It's this weird ass thing that sort of just exists, and I think if there are a few, that thing I was saying about Sony just putting trust in their developers and just letting them loose, I think is very beneficial in a lot of ways. But in this case, I have literally no idea. I can't see this selling big units. I can't see it being a major success in any metric apart from. I don't think that's Sony's goal. But that's what I mean. I don't think it is either. But Media Molecule aren't a small team. They're a big team, and they've been working on it. Everyone in that studio has been working full time on it since Tearaway came out. But even before Tearaway, a significant chunk of them were working on it since Little Big Planet 2. That's a long ass time ago. That's PS3. And so I can't see them even making a profit on this thing. But in the same way that a lot of people criticized A Little Big Planet for a lot of reasons, but some of the stuff that was created by the community was so incredible. Some of the stuff is just mind-blowing. Someone remade Final Fantasy VII. It's actually mind-blowing how that thing worked. They remade
so many games in that.
It's unbelievable. And so stepping away from the business side and just looking at it purely as a thing, I suspect some of the things that are going to come out of that are going to be absolutely amazing.
I think Sony in particular with this, they don't really see it as something that they don't look at this game as a game that they're gonna get a lot of money from. But I think they look at this game as a game where it's this is gonna benefit the PlayStation brand, and in the long run we will profit that way, because they've been pushing themselves since, I want to say, the PlayStation 3 is, we are the kings of creativity.
Yeah.
I want to say since the past 4, 5, 6 E3s or whatever, every E3 is them being going, we're more artistic this E3, we're more artistic this E3, we present our things this way, we present our things this way, our work is art. And I think this is them sort of trying to show their fan base that it's we're not just in this for all the big numbers, And that could be true or it could be false. It's probably false because they're in it for the money. That what else? But like I think I think this is them sort of going, this might not do that well, but we could also make it into a service. And I hate that idea of a service, but if they build it in a way where it's like, okay, this could be put on the PS5, this could be put on the PS4, this could be put on all these other things, and we could just build on this, and it'll be a slow burner. It will just slowly gain a following.
The service thing is interesting because, like, if you talk about games as a service, like Destiny, trash. But if you're looking at something like, there was a Little Big Planet game on the Vita, which was really, really good, and the amount of
Little Big Planet in general is a service game.
Yeah, and that having that thing on the Vita was almost like an app store on the Vita itself, but everything was free. And you could just download people's creativity. And if you think about what Dreams could be, that it kind of actually could be the killer app for PSVR in a way. Because if you buy VR and say you can just say, if they said anything created in this is playable in PlayStation VR, and then you could just have this thing where people are just creating these weird ass experiences tailored specifically for VR, that could be a great thing for that platform, especially one where it is so difficult to develop for. If you just get hardcore, again, I hate that word so much, but if you just get those people to basically create and curate experiences for that platform individually, and not have to say to Capcom, do you know what, you should make a Resident Evil for this platform, or whatever it may be, that could be a really, really cool thing for people who have that platform. I'm not one of them, but if for those people, it could be a great thing.
Yeah, plus it teaches kids. Honestly, it's one of the biggest things I liked about Little Big Planet was that it actually did teach kids more about game coding and game design. And it's like, Media Molecule should sort of get an award for
someone made a calculator in Little Big Planet. How? I can't even get my head around it. I did maths and I can't get my head around that. Like, it makes zero sense to me. Like, it's like that Minecraft thing where you go on YouTube and you just see someone who's created some like monstrosity of a computer in Minecraft. Like, someone's playing Pokemon Red in Minecraft. I'm like, how is this a thing that's happening? And yet somehow it is.
Yeah, I think Minecraft is probably the best way to describe what Dreams could become.
Yeah, sure.
All right, next up we have Capcom, who this whole year have just sort of been burning red hot. I'd say Capcom and Sega.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, the two games we've both sort of marked the hell out about: DMC5, Resident Evil Remake 2. Their trailer's already out, so we probably won't go into it too much. All I'll say for DMC5 is Dante's looking great. Lady and Trish are back. Dante's theme song is terrible, but the singer of the theme song turns out to be a pedophile, so hopefully they rip it from the game and replace his theme.
I mean, if they don't, that's highly concerning for a start. If they don't, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
They will.
The thing is, though,
they will.
It's already it's already in Dante's trailer, so it's like the hands are in a cookie jar, and it's like, well, in a sticky place, and they're like, this is really bad.
Yeah.
This is really bad. We paid for this and everything. But the MC5 just looks great. I just love the way they brought all the old characters back and the way they interact, and everyone just seems jovial. And in terms of the story, it's like, I just want to see what happens next. But anyway, in terms of Resident Evil Remake 2, your thoughts?
Looks sick, man. I'm really excited. The new trailer's really good. It just continues my excitement for the game. It just continues to be exactly what I want from the remake. I enjoyed the sort of almost shot-for-shot remake aspect of the first one. And I think that was the right thing for the right time. With this, them taking it, basically creating something new, but in that same vein and in that same formula. Like, it's just very exciting. It's very, very exciting. And we saw in the new trailer some more monster stuff, which is nice, because obviously, like, zombies are only part of what that is, and something that's always really interesting to me when you get for example, before we started, we were talking about films. And like when you watch Alien now, if you watch it on like Blu-ray, it's significantly different than when you watch it on VHS. Because on VHS you can't really see it; it's grainy. You can't make out the monster. But when you watch it on Blu-ray, you can see every detail of the costume design for the monster.
Yeah,
and I think that
the suspense is lost.
Yeah, there's like a little bit lost from that. Whereas I think in this, there was like I was interested in how are they gonna change the monsters? How are they gonna present them when this is something new, despite being something old? It is something new. How are they going to present those monsters? How are they going to change them to make it not a polygonal mess? And from the ones we saw from the trailer, it looks really interesting and really good and really exciting, and it just continues to be knocked out of the park. And I'm really impressed and very excited. Can it be 2019 now, please? If we can make a brief stop off in October for Red Dead 2, and then maybe a brief stop off in November for Spyro, then just skip to 2019, that'd be great. That'd be really good.
I'm ready for Red Dead so hard.
Yeah, same.
So hard. Next up, Mega Man 11. This is the old Mega Man series, the first one, because Mega Man has a lot of series. They have Mega Man X, Mega Man Original, which is this series, Mega Man Zero, Mega Man Star Force, Mega Man Battle Network. You guys get it.
Mega Man Legends.
Legends, yeah. The thing that people are losing their mind.
There was a Mega Man football game once.
Years ago.
These are all things that exist.
That was a good game.
These are all.
That was a good game.
I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm not playing it. I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm just saying it existed.
That was a fun game. There's also a fighting game of the old Mega Man games, and it was pretty fun too.
What was that? I didn't know that.
There's a lot of Mega Man games.
A lot.
But this one actually looks legit interesting because I want to say last gen they made Mega Man 9 and Mega Man 10, and it was done in a pixelated way to emulate the old style of Mega Man's 1 to, I want to say 6, because 1 to 5, because Mega Man 6 and 7 were on PS1, and they both had different art styles, and like they look great, but Capcom decided to go
terrible
nostalgia.
Voice acting.
Yeah. It adds to the charm, really.
Listen, as I said to you earlier, I'm all about cheese. Give me some cheese, so I'm fine with that. And I do enjoy just listening to that voice acting even now. There's that bit where I can't remember which one it is. I want to say 7, where Dr. Wily's just like, we need to go to the radio room, Mega Man. It's like the guy's never seen the script before and has never voice acted before, and it's so good. I enjoy it. I'm someone who goes and sees the room in cinema. I love that stuff. I'm all about it.
What's great about it is that they weren't actual voice actors. Like back in the day with Resident Evil and so on, it's just like they just got whoever they could find. It's like my friend Joe, he does he has a husky voice. Get him in for Barry Burton.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's so great.
Almost a Jill sandwich.
You are.
Yeah.
Whoa. It's the way he delivers it. It's so good.
Great.
It's so good. All of his lines are so great. Take this lockpick. Oh.
This game looks great though. The art style is way more like, you know how Mega Man looks in Smash? It's way more like that. Not completely, but quite close, and better looking than Mighty Number 9. And I think for a handheld game, particularly the Switch or so, this is perfect.
Yeah.
I might even give it a try.
What's your opinion on Mega? Have you played the old ones, or like any of the main lines, so 1 through 10?
I've never actually played the classic series, but I love the Zero series, and I've played the first Mega Man X game. The PSP re-release. I think it was called Command Mission? No, not Command Mission. Maverick Hunter X on PSP. Yeah. The Zero series I love to death. That was on GBA. It was almost like Ninja Gaiden on your GBA. And ZX on the DS, which was like a Metroidvania, which was a sequel to Zero. And it was like, I like all of these. I like a good platformer. And I think the reason why I like Zero a lot is it just has more speed, and you could jump onto walls and wall climb. Yeah. And if I could wall climb and hover, I'm all about it. I'm a very happy boy. If I could go to secret areas and just wall climb and hover down and slice things at the speed of sound, I am fine. I am very fine.
So just solid Metroidvanias. Solid Metroidvanias.
solid Metroidvanias. It's quite a few. I can't list them all right now.
No, but I mean, they are just solid Metroidvania. It's like, they don't have the backtracking and all that stuff, but like they're going to new areas and like going back into an old level as opposed to just a big open thing. It does that sort of vibe as well from that sort of era.
Yeah. How many other classic games have you played?
How many have I played? I mean, I've got the collection, so I've played all of them, but I haven't completed. I've completed one. And I got to the final boss in 2 before I stopped playing. They're the 2 I've done most. They're very good. Yeah, they're very fun, but they are specifically what they are. They don't pretend to be anything else. But I find it almost. I said this to you last week, but I don't understand why Konami doesn't just do the same thing with Castlevania. Like there's proof. There's proof. That, and I don't even like Castlevania, but like there's proof that this stuff exists. Like I like some of it, but just like I'm not a nerd for Castlevania. Do you know what I mean? But like there's proof.
I'm a huge.
That's 100% calm, and I back that 1000%. But there's proof that this stuff exists with goddamn Mega Man. I don't understand why they don't just do a Mega Man 9 or 10, but with Castlevania. I just don't get it. I just do not get it.